The evolution of baseball from older bat and ball games is difficult to trace with precision. Consensus once held that today's baseball is a North American development from the older game rounders, popular among children in the United Kingdom of Great Britain, sometimes England and Scotland, and Northern Ireland. American baseball historian David Block suggests that the game originated in England and Scotland. Recently uncovered historical evidence supports this position. Block argues that rounders and early baseball were actually regional variants of each other, and that the game's most direct antecedents are the English games of stool ball and tug ball. The earliest known reference to baseball is in a 1744 British publication, A Little Pretty Pocket Book, by John Newberry. Block discovered that the first recorded game of baseball took place in 1749 in Surrey, and featured the Prince of Wales as a player. This early form of the game was apparently brought to Canada by English immigrants.
By the early 1830s, there were reports of a variety of uncodified bat and ball games recognizable as early forms of baseball being played around North America. The first officially recorded baseball game in North America was played in Beachville, Ontario, Canada, on Monday, June 4, 1838. In 1845, Alexander J. Cartwright II, a member of New York City's Knickerbocker Club, led the codification of the so-called Knickerbocker Rules, which in turn were based on rules developed in 1837 by William R. Wheaton of the Gotham Club. While there are reports that the New York Knickerbockers played games in 1845, the contest long recognized as the first officially recorded baseball game in the U.S. history took place on Friday, June 19, 1846, in the city of Hoboken, New Jersey. The New York Nine defeated the Knickerbockers on 23-1 in 4 innings. With the Knickerbocker Code as the basis, the rules of modern baseball continued to evolve over the next half-century. By the time of the Civil War, baseball had begun to overtake its fellow bat and ball sport cricket in popularity within the United States of America, due in part to baseball being of a much shorter duration than the form of cricket played at the time, as well as the fact that troops during the Civil War did not need a specialized playing surface to play baseball, as they would have required for cricket.
In the mid-1850s, a baseball craze hit the New York metropolitan area, and by 1856, local journals were referring to baseball as the national pastime or national game. A year later, the sport's first governing body, the National Association of Baseball Players, was formed. In 1867, it barred participation by African Americans. The more formally structured National League was founded in 1876. Professional Negro leagues formed, but quickly folded. In 1887, softball, under the name of indoor baseball or indoor-outdoor, was invented, as a winter version of the parent game. The National League's first successful counterpart, the American League, which evolved from the minor Western League, was established in 1893, and virtually all of the modern baseball rules were in place by then.
The National Agreement of 1903 formalized relations both between the two major leagues and between them and the National Association of Professional Baseball Leagues, representing most of the country's minor professional leagues. The World Series, pitting the two major league champions against each other, was inaugurated that fall. The Black Sox scandal of the 1919 World Series led to the formation of the Office of the Commissioner of Baseball. The first commissioner, Kennesaw Mountain Landis, was elected in 1920. That year also saw the founding of the Negro National League, the first significant Negro league. It would operate until 1931. For part of the Roaring 1920s, it was joined by the Eastern Colored League.
Compared with the present, professional baseball in the early 20th century was lower scoring, and pitchers were more dominant. The so-called dead ball era ended in the early 1920s with several changes in rule and circumstance that were advantageous to hitters. Strict new regulations governed the ball's size, shape and composition, along with a new rule officially banning the spitball and other pitches that depended on the ball being treated or roughed up with foreign substances, resulted in a ball that traveled farther when hit. The rise of the legendary player Babe Ruth, the first great power hitter of the new era, helped permanently alter the nature of the game. In the late 1920s and early 1930s, St. Louis Cardinals general manager Branch Rickey invested in several minor league clubs and developed the first modern farm system. A new Negro National League was organized in 1933. 4 years later, it was joined by the Negro American League. The first elections to the National Baseball Hall of Fame took place in 1936. In 1939, Little League Baseball was founded in Pennsylvania.
A large number of minor league teams disbanded when World War II led to a player shortage. Chicago Cubs owner Philip P.K. Wrigley led the formation of the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League to help keep the game in the public eye. The first crack in the unwritten agreement barring blacks from white-controlled professional ball occurred in 1945. Jackson R. Robinson was signed by the National League's Brooklyn Dodgers and began playing for their minor league team in Montreal. In 1947, Jack Robinson broke the Major League's color barrier when he debuted with the Dodgers. Latin American players, largely overlooked before, also started entering the majors in greater numbers. In 1951, two Chicago White Sox, Venezuelan-born Alfonso Chico Carrascolan and Afro-Cuban-born Orestes M. Miniezo, became the first Hispanic All-Stars. Integration proceeded slowly. By 1953, only 6 of the 16 major league teams had a black player on the roster.
In 1975, the union's power and players' salary also began to increase greatly when the reserve clause was effectively struck down, leading to the free agency system. Significant work stoppages occurred in 1981 and 1994, the latter forcing the cancellation of the World Series for the first time in 90 years. Attendance had been growing steadily since the mid-1970s, and in 1994, before the stoppage, the majors were setting their all-time record for per-game attendance. After play resumed in 1995, non-division winning wildcard teams became a permanent fixture of the postseason. Regular season interleague play was introduced in 1997, and the second highest attendance mark for a full season was set. In 2000, the National and American Leagues were dissolved as legal entities, while their identities were maintained for scheduling purposes, and the designated hitter distinction, the regulations and other functions such as player discipline and umpire supervision that they had administered separately were consolidated under the rubric of MLB.
In 2001, Barry L. Bonds established the current record of 73 home runs in a single season. There had long been suspicions that the dramatic increase in power hitting was fueled in large part by the abuse of illegal steroids, as well as by the dilution of pitching talent due to expansion. But the issue only began attracting significant media attention in 2002, and there was no penalty for the use of performance-enhancing drugs before 2004. In 2007, Bonds became MLB's all-time home run leader, surpassing Hank Aaron, also known as the Hammering Hank, as total major league and minor league attendance both reached all-time highs.
With the historic popular moniker as America's national pastime, baseball is well established in several other countries as well. As early as 1877, a professional league, the International Association, featured teams from both Canada and the United States of America. While baseball is widely played in Canada and many minor league teams have been based in the country, the American major leagues did not include a Canadian club until 1969, when the Montreal Expos joined the National League as an expansion team. In 1977, the expansion Toronto Blue Jays joined the American League.
In 1847, American soldiers played what may have been the first baseball game in Mexico at Parque Los Ferros in Jalapa, Veracruz, Mexico. The first formal baseball league outside of the United States and Canada was founded in 1878 in Cuba, which maintains a rich baseball tradition. The Dominican Republic held its first land-wide championship tournament in 1912. Professional baseball tournaments and leagues began to form in other countries between the world wars, including the Netherlands, formed in 1922, Australia in 1934, Japan in 1936, Mexico 1937, and Puerto Rico 1938. The Japanese major leagues have long been considered the highest quality professional circuits outside of the United States of America.
After World War II, professional leagues were founded in many Latin American countries, most prominently Venezuela in 1946. And the Dominican Republic in 1955. Since the early 1970s, the annual Caribbean Series has matched the championship clubs from the four leading Latin American winter leagues: the Dominican Professional Baseball League, Mexican Pacific League, Puerto Rican Professional Baseball League, and Venezuelan Professional Baseball League. In Asia, South Korea in 1982, Taiwan, China in 1990, and China everywhere in 2003 all have professional leagues.
The English football club, Aston Villa, were the first British baseball champions, winning the 1890 National League of Baseball of Great Britain. The 2020 national champions were the London Mets. Other European countries have seen professional leagues. The most successful, other than the Dutch league, is the Italian League, founded in 1948. In 2004, Australia won a surprise silver medal at the Olympic Games. The Confederation European of Baseball, known in British English, Aussie English, Canadian English, Hindu English, African English, and US American English as European Baseball Confederation, founded in 1953, organizes a number of competitions between clubs from different countries. Other competitions between national teams, such as the Baseball World Cup and the Olympic Baseball Tournament, were administered by the International Baseball Federation, or IBF for short, from its formation in 1938 until its 2013 merger with the International Softball Federation to create the current joint governing body for both sports, the World Baseball Softball Confederation, or WBSC for short. Women's baseball is played on an organized amateur basis in numerous countries.
After being admitted to the Olympics as a medal sport beginning with the 1992 Games, baseball was dropped from the 2012 Summer Olympic Games at the 2005 International Olympic Committee meeting. It remained part of the 2008 Games. While the sport's lack of a following in much of the world was a factor, more important was MLB's reluctance to allow its players to participate during the Major League season. MLB initiated the World Baseball Classic, scheduled to precede its season, partly as a replacement, high-profile international tournament. The inaugural Classic, held in March 2006, was the first tournament involving national teams to feature a significant number of MLB participants. The Baseball World Cup was discontinued after its 2011 edition in favor of an expanded World Baseball Classic.
Conclusion number 1. Baseball is a bat and ball sport played between two teams of 9 players each, taking turns batting and fielding. The game occurs over the course of several plays, with each play generally beginning when a player on the fielding team, called the pitcher, throws a ball at a player on the batting team, called the batter, tries to hit with the bat. The objective of the offensive team, known as the batting team, is to hit the ball into the fielded play, away from the other team's players, allowing its players to run the bases, having them advance counterclockwise around 4 bases to score what are called runs. The objective of the defensive team, referred to as the fielding team, is to prevent batters from becoming runners, and to prevent runners advance around the bases. A run is scored when a runner legally advances around the bases in order and touches home plate, the place where the player started as a batter.
Conclusion number 2. The principal objective of the batting team is to have a player reach first base safely. This generally occurs either when the batter hits the ball and reaches first base before an opponent retrieves the ball and touches the base, or when the pitcher persists in throwing the ball out of the batter's reach. Players on the batting team who reach first base without being called out can attempt to advance to subsequent bases as a runner, either immediately or during teammates' turns batting. The fielding team tries to prevent runs by getting batters or runners out, which forces them out of the field of play. The pitcher can get the batter out by throwing 3 pitches which result in strikes, while fielders can get the batter out by catching a batted ball before it touches the ground, and can get a runner out by tagging them with the ball while the runner is not touching a base.
Conclusion number 3. The opposing teams switch back and forth between batting and fielding. The batting team's turn to bat is over once the fielding team records 3 outs. 1 turn batting for each team constitutes an inning. A game is usually composed of 9 innings, and the team with the greater number of runs at the end of a game wins. Most games end after the 9th inning, but if scores are tied at that point, extra innings are usually played. Baseball has no game clock, though some competitions feature pace of play regulations such as the pitch clock to shorten game time.
Conclusion number 4. Baseball evolved from older bat and ball games already being played in England by the mid-18th century. This game was brought by immigrants to North America, where the modern version developed. Baseball's American origins, as well as its reputation as a source of escapism during troubled points in American history such as the American Civil War and the Great Depression, have led the sport to receive the moniker of America's pastime since the late 19th century. It has been unofficially recognized as the national sport of the United States, though in modern times is considered less popular than other sports, such as American football. In addition to North America, baseball is considered the most popular sport in parts of the South and Central America, the Caribbean, and East Asia, particularly in Japan, South Korea, and Taiwan.
And finally, conclusion number 5. In Major League Baseball, or MLB for short, the highest level of professional baseball in the United States and Canada, teams are divided into the National League and American League, each with 3 divisions, East, West, and Central. The MLB champion is determined by playoffs that culminate in the World Series. The top level of play is similarly split in Japan between the Central and Pacific Leagues, and in Cuba between the West League and East League. The World Baseball Classic, organized by the World Baseball Softball Confederation, is the major international competition of the sport and attracts the top national teams from around the world. Baseball was played at the Olympic Games from 1992 to 2008 and was reinstated in 2020.
And that is it for the 76 commentary blog. We hope you guys and gals enjoyed it, and we'll see you again for more a bit later.